remember when President Obama said this.
I believe it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen with a drone or with a shotgun without due process. Nor should any president deploy armed drones over U.S. soil.
Okay, well, a troubling new report is now revealing that a secret memo from 2010 outlined the administration's potential use of military force against Americans in the United States of America. Joining us right now is the man who broke the story, Bill Gertz. He is the national security columnist for The Washington Times. Good morning to you, Bill.
Good morning, Steve.
Who told you about this?
Yeah, defense source brought this to my attention and was fairly concerned about it. Said, look, this appears to be the latest step in the administration's decision to, at some point, use force against American citizens in the future.
Do they give any instances when that would be appropriate? Because that is that's currently forbidden, we thought.
Right. The Posse Comitatus Act prevents the military from being used in law enforcement. But this memo was outlined in December, signed in December of 2010, and it outlines the conditions when military forces could be used to quell civil unrest. And that, I guess, to say that there's growing concern among many Americans about the consolidation of power in the federal government would be an understatement. There are a lot of people concerned about this. And then you see this memo in connection with the growing militarization of many of the non-security agencies of government, like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Agriculture Department with SWAT teams and things like that. There's a growing concern about this.
Why does the Ag Department have a SWAT team?
Well, it's done under a little-known statute that permits the deputization of security personnel. And every agency has security people, but when you deputize them, it gives them some law enforcement power, and the next thing you know, you have SWAT teams.
And everybody, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. Well, we got to have a SWAT team, too. Bill, the Pentagon directive reads, in part, quote, "Federal action, including the use of federal military forces, is authorized when necessary to protect the federal property or functions." I know you've been thinking about this. When could that possibly go into effect?
Yeah. Well, first off, the concern here is that mainly the job of the military is to fight and win the nation's wars. So any discussion about the use of domestic military force against Americans in domestic unrest is a concern. But they outlined a situation where there would be a breakdown of order, where there was a major threat of large-scale loss of life, or if federal authorities were unable or unwilling to protect federal properties and people. So those are the two conditions outlined in the directive where this could come into play.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last time the federal government mobilized in a fashion like this was after the San Francisco earthquake back in 1906. So it's not like this is something that they really have to address quickly.
Right. Well, I was told by a U.S. official that there was consideration of using military force under this directive in the recent standoff in Nevada with rancher Cliven Bundy, who was in a dispute with the Bureau of Land Management over grazing, but apparently cooler heads prevailed and they decided not to call out the military in that case.
You mean they were considering taking him out with a drone?
No, I think they were going to use military forces to somehow deal with the protests that had risen up over that.
Well, I'm glad somebody talked him out of that. That would have been crazy. Yeah. Bill Gertz, a national security columnist for The Washington Times. Bill, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
Sure, thank you.